It's the finale. Sorry for the delay, I was busy and didn't know how to wrap this up, so I can only pray that I made a satisfactory ending. Loudly crying face. I don't own anything but the plot. What are you doing? Sakusa's voice cut through the quiet as his eyes landed on the brown-haired man perched on a chair by the window. Komori wasn't dressed for bed as he should have been, but in clothes that made it clear he'd gone out. It was a Saturday morning, and the Miya twins, along with Suna, were heading to the Inarizuki gym for the practice match their coach had scheduled against Itachiyama. So, Your Majesty, Suna drawls, slinging an arm lazily around Atsumu's shoulder, a sly grin tugging at his lips. You excited to see your husband? Atsumu frowns for what might be the 30th time since last night, already regretting telling Osamu and Suna about what happened. But before he could shake Suna off, Osamu joined in, ruffling his twin's hair and trapping him between the two of them. Don't try marrying into wealth now, Your Majesty, Osamu teases with a grin. Focus on volleyball first and earn your own money before ya try aiming higher. The teasing earned the two a deep frown from Atsumu, who quickened his pace, clearly done with the conversation. The night before, Atsumu had made the mistake of telling Osamu and Suna about what really happened during the week he supposedly went missing. Well, part of it. He left out the personal details like the strange system that dragged him into another world and especially the more intimate parts of his so-called marriage. Still, the story was wild enough on its own. Somehow, Atsumu had ended up in another world, married King Sakusa Kiyumi of that world, and became his consort. To Atsumu's surprise, Osamu and Suna believed his story of being pulled into another world. After all, they did see that strange light, but the moment Atsumu mentioned being married, they completely lost it. The idea of Atsumu getting married, of all people, was comedy gold to them. After all, Atsumu's love ever since he was young was volleyball. He didn't do romance. Atsumu, who used to turn down his admirers, saying volleyball's the only love I need, suddenly coming back gay and claiming to have a husband after a week. That just sounded ridiculous to them. Suna and Osamu caught up to him again, still snickering as they matched his stride. Come on, don't be mad, Atsumu. As your brother, I'm just excited to meet your gay awakening. He'll be there, right? Osamu meant the practice match with Itachiyama. That was Sakusa's team where he was known as one of the top 3 aces before the accident. At least, that's what Suna had told him. Well, Atsumu wouldn't know if Sakusa would actually be there, but something deep in his gut told him he would. Well, I hope so, Atsumu mutters, because if Sakusa didn't come to him, Atsumu was damn well going to Tokyo to find him himself. But Atsumu, your husband's already awake, so why hasn't he looked for you yet? That's right. The news that Sakusa Kiyumi, the Sakusa family's 3rd son, had finally woken up from a year-long coma had spread all over the news last night. Atsumu hadn't paid much attention to the headlines before, but now he understood just how much of a big shot Sakusa was, even in this world. His heart twisted with uncertainty. Sakusa. Will he really remember him? He temporarily doesn't have his memories. The moment Atsumu said it, the weight of his own words hit him like a brick. It was as if he had just erased everything between them with a single sentence. Because really, how could he be the only one who remembered what happened between them? To Osamu and Suna, it sounded like something out of a fever dream. Atsumu, transported into another world, claiming he was married to some powerful heir who now had amnesia. It all sounded too far-fetched to be real. And a part of Atsumu was starting to wonder the same. Was it really just a dream? His imagination? But Atsumu didn't have the energy to defend himself anymore, nor did he want to sink into the thought that it was all just a fever dream. Even if Sakusa didn't remember him, Atsumu just has to make Sakusa fall for him again. He'd done it once. He could do it twice. Atsumu has never been a quitter. Fueled by a mix of stubbornness and hope, Atsumu straightens up, determination blazing in his eyes. By the end of today, I'll make him remember. Then I'll properly introduce Yatu to my husband. Osamu and Suna exchanged a long look, though they didn't say anything more after that. Before long, the 3 of them arrived at the Inarizuki gym, where the Itachiyama team was already gathered. They were, unsurprisingly, the last to show up. I told ya guys to get here early, not arrive just right on time. Kida's voice had that quiet firmness that made even a simple statement sound like a lecture. Sorry, Kida-san, you know how this scrub takes ages to fix his hair, Osamu says, jerking a thumb toward Atsumu. Hey, Atsumu, I know ya just came back from a surreal experience, but it's not an excuse to be late, right? Atsumu told his teammates about the whole being transferred into another world, but he didn't go into detail. His teammates saw that strange light too, so they knew it was a supernatural event, though his teammates didn't really pry either, so they left it at that. As long as Atsumu was okay, then there was nothing to worry about. Got it, Kida-san, Atsumu replies, nodding obediently, but his gaze had already drifted toward the other side of the court. Itachima's players were lined up for practice, and right in the middle of them stood a familiar gorgeous face that Atsumu could never mistake, Sakusa Kayumi. His dark curls were still the same sharp, steady eyes, and that calm and almost regal composure. Sakusa looked every bit as breathtaking as Atsumu remembered. Even now, Atsumu couldn't help the warmth that bloomed in his chest. He knew that even if their paths had never crossed in that other world, he'd still end up crushing hard on Sakusa. Regardless of what world he's in, Atsumu was probably destined to be hopelessly smitten with Sakusa. Kita's voice snaps him out of his thoughts. All right, now that everyone's here, line up. Let's greet the other team properly. The Inarizaki players fell into formation, the sound of sneakers squeaking lightly against the gym floor. Atsumu took his place beside Aaron and tried to focus, though his gaze inevitably found its way back to Sakusa again. Itachima's captain stepped forward first, bowing politely, and Kita mirrored the gesture. One by one, the players from both teams exchanged brief greetings and handshakes, but Atsumu couldn't help noticing how Sakusa skipped the handshakes entirely, giving only a curt nod to each person who passed. When Osamu and Suna received this chilly acknowledgement, they both shot Atsumu identical looks that said, "There's no way this guy's your future husband." Atsumu responded with a tight-lipped smile that clearly said, "Screw ya both." Soon, the line thinned, and Atsumu realized his turn to greet Sakusa was coming up fast. But before that, standing right in front of him, was a brown-haired guy with thick eyebrows and a bright, disarming smile. There was something oddly familiar about him, though Atsumu was sure he has never met him before. That familiarity clicked the moment the brunette spoke, cheerful and open. "I'm Komori Matoya." Atsumu remembers this name. This was Sakusa's cousin, wasn't it? So, the Komori over here is alive and well. That's good. Okay, new plan. Atsumu can't just act overly familiar with Sakusa now. He'll start casual, play it cool, and maybe win over Komori first. Straightening his posture, Atsumu flashes his trademark charming smile. "Nice to meet ya, Mori-kun. I'm Miya Atsumu." That earns Atsumu a surprised look from the two, especially Sakusa, who is staring intently at him. What? Did Atsumu say something wrong? Or did Sakusa remember something? Atsumu wonders, feeling a prickle of heat crawl up his neck under that intense stare. Their eyes met for a moment before Atsumu quickly looked away, pretending to smooth out his jersey to hide his flustered expression. Trying to recover, Atsumu extends out a hand toward Komori with an easy smile. But just as Komori reached out to return the gesture, Sakusa abruptly reached between them, smacking Komori's hand away with a sharp slap. "Just say your greetings. There's no need to shake hands." Confused Komori noises. Komori stares down at his hand, visibly baffled, trying to figure out what, exactly, it had done to deserve being swatted away. Atsumu was also a little taken back. Was Sakusa being protective, wary? Maybe he didn't want strangers getting too close. Well, this is their first meeting here in this world, so when it was finally his turn with Sakusa, Atsumu didn't bother with another handshake attempt. Instead, he flashes Sakusa a friendly grin. "Sakusa Kayumi, right? Wing Spiker?" Sakusa doesn't reply to Atsumu's question, but instead narrows his eyes as his brows drew together. "You'd offer Matoya a handshake but not me?" Atsumu blinks, caught completely off guard. "Can I?" For a moment, Sakusa just stared at him, the air between them charged with unspoken tension. Then, after a long, tense pause, Sakusa slowly extended his hand toward him. Atsumu's heart skips. He reached out too, their fingers brushing as they shook hands briefly, and even though it lasted barely 2 seconds, Atsumu's heart had already made several backflips. This was special treatment, right? Feeling braver at being the only one Sakusa seemed to shake hands with, Atsumu decided to take his chances and push his flirting a little more. "Can I call Yaomi?" Sakusa's eyes narrows ever so slightly, not irritated, just curious, like he was trying to figure out what Atsumu was playing at. "Why? I like giving nicknames to people I like." That makes Sakusa frown a little, looking at Atsumu, unimpressed. "You called Matoya, Mori-kun, a few minutes ago. Do you just like anyone you meet?" "Not everyone," Atsumu says softly, his smile widening as he leaned in just a little. "I like ya the most." Atsumu drags out the ya deliberately, his voice dipping playfully as his eyes curved into bright crescents. Before Sakusa could respond, a familiar voice interrupted from beside him. "Atsumu, stop flirtin'. You're making him uncomfortable." Aaron, who was beside Atsumu, reaches out to ruffle Atsumu's hair in mock scolding, clearly trying to rein him in before he caused any more trouble. "Sorry about him, ya don't have to pay him any mind. He just can't keep his mouth shut." But Atsumu wasn't listening to Aaron. His attention was fixed on Sakusa, on the way Sakusa's jaw had tightened ever so slightly, his dark eyes flicking toward Aaron's hand resting on Atsumu's head. It was subtle, but unmistakable, the faintest glint of possessiveness in that look that Atsumu knows all too well. Atsumu bites back a smile. This part of Sakusa hasn't changed. Even without his memories, some things were clearly ingrained deep in Sakusa's instincts. Atsumu casually brushes off Aaron's hand, and sure enough, Sakusa's tense posture softened, his jaw unclenching almost immediately. Omi, can I call ya that? Atsumu tilts his head, testing his luck. The sight triggers something deep inside Sakusa's mind. For a fleeting moment, Sakusa saw it. Atsumu, dressed not in his volleyball uniform but in elegant medieval-style clothes, golden hair catching the light as he smiled and reached out a hand. They were dancing, slow and close, and the same head tilt, that same look, made Sakusa's chest tighten with something painfully familiar. The image vanished almost instantly, leaving Sakusa standing there. A sudden pulse of pain then shot through Sakusa's head, forcing him to take a small step back. That vision, it didn't feel like a dream. It was too vivid, too real. The way Atsumu smiled, the warmth in his eyes, the way his body moved, it all struck something deep within him, something that felt almost like memory. Why did Sakusa feel so drawn to Atsumu? From the instant their eyes met, something inside him had recognized the setter, as if his very soul knew him long before his mind could. Have we met before? Atsumu freezes, eyes widening in surprise. For a moment, he couldn't bring himself to answer. Sakusa seems to recognize him somehow. Part of him wanted to shout yes, to tell Sakusa everything, that they had met, that they even got married in another world, but he stopped himself. If Sakusa didn't remember yet, forcing it might only confuse him more. Maybe if they spent more time together, the memories would come back naturally. So instead, Atsumu smiles, his eyes never leaving Sakusa. After practice, would ya have dinner with me? Oh my god, Atsumu, seriously? I'm really sorry about him. Before Atsumu could protest, Aaron slung an arm around his neck and tugged him back a few steps, lowering his voice so only Atsumu could hear. What's gotten into ya? Why do ya keep flirting with him? And since when were ya interested in anything other than volleyball? Atsumu tries to wriggle free, whispering back with a stubborn glint in his eye. Cause I like him. Aaron blinks, caught off guard by how easily that came out. He knew that Atsumu wasn't joking. Before Aaron could say anything else, another hand reached in, firm fingers curling around Atsumu's wrist. In one smooth motion, Sakusa yanks Atsumu out of Aaron's hold. Sakusa's dark gaze stayed fixed on him, steady and unreadable. After a while, he released Atsumu's wrist, his expression barely changing as he spoke. I like umabashi. It was such an unexpected response that for a split second, Atsumu just stared before his lips curved into a smile. I know a really good umabashi place around here. I'll take ya there later. Since everyone's attention had already been on Atsumu and Sakusa, the last two who still hadn't finished their introductions, it was impossible not to overhear their exchange. The entire gym seemed to be in shock, eyes darting between them in disbelief. Komori looked completely stunned, and so did the rest of Inarizuki and Itachiayama. Even Suna and Osamu were giving each other weird, knowing looks. Meanwhile, Atsumu was extremely happy, grinning like he'd already won the practice match. Practice had wrapped up the third set, with Inarizuki taking the first, Itachiayama the second, and the third set going to Itachiayama by a single point in a tense deuce. Both teams now sat on their respective benches, catching their breath and sipping water, towels draped over their shoulders. So, what's going on between you and Atsumu? Komori asks, towel draped around his neck as he wiped his face, looking at Sakusa. Sakusa, who just finished taking a sip out his water bottle, arches an eyebrow at Komori. What do you mean? Don't play dumb with me, Kyo. You two have been, flirting across the court this whole match. Komori's tone wavered somewhere between exasperation and amusement. I always thought when you fell for someone, you'd be all serious and reserved about it. But now, I see you're the unbearable type. You both can't stop looking at each other. Look, Atsumu's even staring at you right now. Sakusa glanced toward where Komori was pointing, and sure enough, Atsumu's eyes were on him. When their eyes met, Atsumu breaks into a smile, waving cheerfully before Osamu came over to pull him away. Sakusa's lips twitched upward almost imperceptibly, but he quickly looked away, hiding the faint warmth rising in his chest. Don't even try to hide your smile. I saw it, Komori says accusingly. Wait, I remember, you called for him when you woke up, didn't you? Before the coma, have you two met before? Sakusa stiffens. Somehow, Sakusa felt that he had met. Throughout the match, Fleeting visions had been surfacing in his mind, images of waking up beside Atsumu crying while Sakusa gently wiped his tears away, even moments of them playing volleyball together. This had to be his memories, because Sakusa can remember the warmth of Atsumu's hands, the sting of his own fingertips from drying those tears. Atsumu must know, Sakusa realizes, which explained why he acted so effortlessly, so familiar, and judging by Atsumu's behavior and the fragments of his own memories, their relationship is definitely more than just friends. I think I have, but Sakusa's visions, no memories, still seemed to be hazy, more like fleeting impressions than full recollections. He couldn't piece together the complete picture yet. Before Komori could press further, Atsumu appeared, weaving his way over with a volleyball tucked under his arm. Mia, Sakusa acknowledges Atsumu, his tone neutral but attentive. Call me Atsumu. With a cheeky smile, Atsumu takes out the ball from his arm. Omi, can I set for ya? Coach says the next practice game is a free-for-all, meaning we can pair up with whoever we want. Sakusa's chest tightened. He remembered seeing a vision of this exact scene. The certainty that they had met before, whether in a past life or some other world, felt stronger than ever. At Atsumu's request, Sakusa felt like he could never deny Atsumu anything. Just as he was about to agree, Komori had to step up and remind Sakusa that he just recently woke up from a coma. Kyo has to sit the next match out. The doctors and coach said he can't push himself too hard. I'm fine. I can play another. Ya should rest this one out, Omi. Atsumu's tone was gentle and understanding. I'll set to ya another time. Anytime. Actually, another time implied a next time. Anytime implied no restrictions, that Atsumu would set to him as long as Sakusa wanted him to. Sakusa only hums in response, but a faint warmth crept up his ears, coloring them red. As the free-for-all practice match got underway, Atsumu dashed across the court with his usual energy. Only Sakusa and Komori remained on the bench, Komori keeping him company. You're so whipped. Sakusa doesn't even deny it. Soon, the match reached its peak, Atsumu's team holding a slight lead. When it was his turn to serve, a surprising crowd of fangirls had gathered despite it being the weekend. One particularly loud girl shrieked as Atsumu positioned himself at the back of the court. Kaya, Atsumu-sama, you can do it. Shut up, ya squealing pig. Don't disrupt my serve. Atsumu's brows furrowed tightly, and the girls instantly quieted down. Komori, feeling the need to provide commentary to Sakusa, leans in. I heard Atsumu gets pissed off when people disrupt him when serving. That only earns Komori a hum from Sakusa. As Atsumu was about to get ready to serve, Sakusa raises his voice to call him out. Atsumu. Everyone freezes for a moment, expecting Atsumu to curse out Sakusa and have Atsumu's crush on him fade instantly. Instead, hearing Sakusa say his given name made Atsumu beam, his face lighting up as he turned happily toward Sakusa. Omi, ya called? Horizontal ellipsis. Horizontal ellipsis. Horizontal ellipsis. Horizontal ellipsis. Sakusa smiles, extremely pleased. I'll play in the next round. Set for me. Atsumu smiles back warmly, not in the very least annoyed or angry. Anything for ya, Omi. Sakusa then, very smugly, turns back to Komori. Show off. In the next match, Atsumu and Sakusa teamed up, their deadly quick combos and seamless nonverbal coordination dominating the court. Part-way through, Kita, who was part of their team, went over to Atsumu and patted Atsumu's head like a proud parent. At that exact moment, a volleyball slammed hard onto the court. Sakusa had just spiked it, his sharp gaze catching Kita's hand on Atsumu. Horizontal ellipsis. Atsumu quickly stepped back, waving his hands defensively. Everyone, stop touching me. I can't do this kind of thing anymore. I'm a married man. Married? Kita seemed confused while Osamu, who was also on their team, tried to make sense of the situation. Why are ya still going on with this nonsense? Sorry Kita-san, Atsumu must still be daydreaming. Sakusa, who had just scored a point, had a dark expression on his face, clearly unsettled. You're married? Atsumu, in an attempt to flirt with Sakusa even more, says, I am. Sakusa, already irritated from earlier, only grew colder. His glare was so sharp and cutting that Atsumu felt as if the room itself had dropped 10 degrees. This familiar look. If looks could kill, Atsumu was sure he'd already be done for. Without a word, Sakusa turned and left the gym, leaving everyone staring at Atsumu like he was at fault. Inarizuki, knowing Atsumu wasn't actually married, at least in this world, thought he'd taken the joke too far, teasing Sakusa unnecessarily. Itachi-ayama thought so too. Osamu and Suna, fully aware of who Atsumu was really referring to, thought it was hilarious, so they simply kept their mouth shut. Well, okay, Atsumu is at fault, but Sakusa should know by now. The person Atsumu is married to is him. I'll be right back. Without wasting another second, Atsumu dashed out of the gym, chasing after Sakusa. Omi. Sakusa stopped in his tracks and turned, his glare sharp enough to make Atsumu stop just a few meters away from him. The intensity of it reminded him of the first time they had met. Why are you here, Miya? Ah, and he's back to Miya again. What happened to Atsumu? Ask your husband to call you that. Atsumu stifles a laugh. Because really, Sakusa is so fucking cute. Omi, why are ya jealous of yourself? Sakusa's icy expression softened slightly, though his brows remained furrowed in confusion. I'm married to ya, silly. Do ya still not remember? Sakusa's sour mood slowly faded, leaving him staring at Atsumu with a blank, almost clueless expression. Atsumu saw this as his cue to step a little closer. Just so you know, the person who should be mad here should be me. That time, ya pushed me away. Sakusa seemed completely lost, his mind struggling to process Atsumu's words. I didn't. Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through his head. Images and emotions he had been unable to grasp before surged back in an overwhelming rush, memories colliding and intertwining until everything felt painfully vivid. Seeing Sakusa in distress, Atsumu immediately stepped closer, concern etched across his face. Omi, what's wrong? Ya have been having headaches like this a lot. Atsumu, hearing his given name again, laced with warmth and longing, made Atsumu pause mid-breath. Sakusa was calling for him affectionately, just like he had back then. Atsumu realized, with a surge of emotion, that Sakusa remembered. Omi, you. Atsumu's words caught in his throat as Sakusa's hand slid to the back of his head, pulling him in. Without hesitation, Sakusa pressed his lips to Atsumu's in a fierce, desperate kiss. By the time they broke apart, Atsumu's lips were red and swollen, his breath ragged. Sakusa even bit Atsumu's lower lip resentfully, remembering when Atsumu vanished right before his eyes. What are ya bitten me for? If you leave me again, I'm going to make sure you'll never be able to walk again. Atsumu flushes at the implication, heat flooding to his face. That time, I chose to stay. Ya were the one who pushed me away, Omi. Atsumu thinks back to Sakusa's hurtful words before they parted, and he angrily turns away with a huff. Now that I think about it, I'm still mad at ya for that. Sakusa's expression softened, guilt flickering in his eyes as he remembered the hurtful words he'd said to Atsumu back then. Without another word, he reached forward and pulled Atsumu into his arms, hugging him close. You should know how hard it was for me to say that. I love you, Atsumu. I'm so fucking crazy about you, you have no idea. Atsumu, realizing just how easily Sakusa could coax him, immediately hugged him back, savoring the familiar warmth in Sakusa's arms. Then why did ya do that? I made a deal with the system. Sakusa's voice softened further as he pressed a gentle kiss to Atsumu's forehead, resting their foreheads together. If I did that, and you still chose to stay, then you'd be bound to me forever. Atsumu was a little confused. Bound to ya? What do ya need that for? I'm already yours. Sakusa didn't elaborate further. He simply hummed softly, smiling at Atsumu with quiet satisfaction at his words. Atsumu, momentarily distracted by Sakusa's smile, didn't press for any more details, but then a thought struck him. Omi, y'are goin' pro to ride? Come to MSBY with me. I wanna be y'are setter. Sakusa feigned contemplation at Atsumu's words, his tone teasing. I was thinking of going to Sweden Alders. I heard their starting setter is pretty skilled. Atsumu frowns. Fine, go there for all I care. I'm leavin'. Don't come crying to me once ya regret it. Atsumu wriggles free from Sakusa's arms, storming toward the gym, annoyed. Who says you can leave? Ya can't make me stay. Miya Atsumu. In an instant, Atsumu, who was a few feet away from Sakusa, all of a sudden, is magically back in Sakusa's arms. Atsumu remembers what Sakusa said about being bound to him, and the realization dawns on him that the deal Sakusa made with the system was for this. Yeah, pushed me away for this? Omi, you're insane. Sakusa lips curved, like Atsumu had just paid him the highest compliment. You think so? This is something I can't change though. I told you, I'm fucking crazy about you. Atsumu thinks Sakusa is actually insane, but the fact that he doesn't mind this at all probably meant he was just as bad. It's fine, I'm crazy about ya too, but ya have to go to MSBY or else I'll. How about you convince me instead of trying to threaten me? Atsumu gave Sakusa a playful look, one brow arched in suspicion. Ya just want kisses, don't ya? Sakusa doesn't answer and only smiles wider. Atsumu huffs fondly, then grabs Sakusa and pulled him down, closing the distance between them. Between kisses, Sakusa's voice called out softly, Atsumu, let's get married. Atsumu knew what sakusa meant, getting married here, in this world. Okay, let's have the wedding in 2 days. Atsumu laughs, remembering that it was exactly the same as their first meeting. It was rushed, spontaneous, with barely any time to plan, but sakusa found a way to make it work. So, it's no surprise that he'll do the same even this time around. Okay, but this time, I'm expecting ya to prepare wedding vows. Anything you want. Now I can formally introduce ya to Samu Sunaran as my future husband. Fingers intertwined, Atsumu tugs Sakusa back toward the gym. Hurry, hurry, let's go back to the gym. They don't believe I'm married to ya, and now everyone's going to lose their minds. Sakusa follows Atsumu with a soft smile, clasping their hands tighter. Okay. 1 year later, Sakusa's eyes opened to an empty bed. Reaching for his phone on the nightstand, he hit the contact labeled Menace Husband Yellow Heart. After one ring, the cheerful voice on the other end answered, "Mornin' dear husband, ya better hurry up or you will be late for practice." What happened to seeing my face the first thing in the morning? Well, I already did. I even gave ya a morning kiss to wake ya up, but ya wouldn't budge. Sakusa vaguely remembered Atsumu trying to wake him with kisses, but all he had managed was a sleepy hum before dozing off again. Really, ever since he's been married to Atsumu, his insomnia vanished, and he's been sleeping like a baby every night. Where are you? I'm already at the gym. Says who? Me and Atsumu. Although they were married, both kept their last names. Sakusa couldn't change his due to his obligations as a Sakusa heir, and Atsumu wanted to keep his as a way to stay connected to his twin, Osamu. Plus, it helped the volleyball announcers avoid confusion during matches. They were both contented with that. Right after Sakusa called out Atsumu's full name, Atsumu, who was in the MSBY gym just moments ago, suddenly reappeared in their bedroom, sitting right on Sakusa's lap. They both share a look, horizontal ellipsis. Omi. Sakusa laughs, his dimples showing as he leaned in and gave Atsumu a gentle kiss. In my vows, I said that you're also the first person I want to see when I wake up. How could you leave without letting me see your face? Atsumu can't even bring himself to be mad at Sakusa after being kissed. You're the one who told me to go ahead without ya. Practice starts in 10 minutes. Omi, coach is gonna kill us. Then we'll get scolded together. Why are ya dragging me with ya? Atsumu pouts, feeling wronged at the thought of being scolded at. When Atsumu was, in fact, the earliest one who arrived in the gym. You're abusing this power of yours for the wrong things. Omi, ya should call me only if ya need me, but I do need you. What for? Sakusa kisses Atsumu again, longer this time, just because. Atsumu narrows his eyes. He knows Sakusa must have an ulterior motive, and he can already guess what it is. Hurry up, and get changed. Take a shower with me? As he spoke, Sakusa lifted Atsumu from his lap and carried him toward the bathroom, confirming Atsumu's suspicions. Atsumu smiles, looping his arms around Sakusa's neck. I knew ya were up to no good. Omi, if we're late to practice, ya have to take the blame. Okay, anything you want. Just like how Sakusa isn't able to deny Atsumu anything, Sakusa knows Atsumu can't say no to Sakusa either. Sakusa's time in the other world had been far from happy, and even his life in this one wasn't perfect with the exception of Komori and volleyball. But ever since Atsumu came in his life, he's been very happy. He was thankful to whatever system had pulled Atsumu into his world, orchestrating the twisted Yandere dating sim that Atsumu often joked about. Perhaps his accident last year was actually a blessing in disguise. Sure enough, they were late to practice and the coach scolded them before allowing them to rejoin. Afterward, they had dinner with Osamu, Suna, and Komori, then spent the evening watching ridiculously cheesy rom-coms. When night came, they talked about the small, everyday things and shared soft kisses until they drifted off to sleep in each other's arms. It's a life both simple and full of doing what they love with the people they love, and Atsumu and Sakusa wouldn't have it any other way. The end.